All right. I'm back. This is going to be a solo episode in which you're just going to see my mug and hear my voice. And if you've been watching or paying attention to this podcast, you may have noticed a few changes. One of those changes, maybe to your delight, is that I'm creating and coming out with shorter episodes. And the reason for that is because I want to use it as a way to sort of preempt or to encourage people like yourself watching and listening to tell me if you want to hear more and see more. And so then we can kind of go in depth. And I want people to be able to come here, get some bite-sized bits of information, and then choose to click deeper into the podcast playlist if you want to hear more. So hopefully you see more of these like 20 to 30 minute episodes so that you can you can watch without having to worry about devoting 2 hours or an hour and a half to long form content. So this will be what we call short long form content. Anyway, on this episode, I want to talk about a few things. I'm going to try to keep it to around 20 minutes total from this point forward. So I'm going to talk about Bantham, this really cool retreat that I went on as a part of the Vivo Barefoot work retreat. I'll talk about some interesting blood test results. I tend to get labs 3 or 4 times a year. And so I'll talk a little bit about that and why that's important. Also, I got a chance to go and see my kids while I was over in the UK. I decided to go and see my kids in Budapest. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And then I will give you some insight into a few books that I've read and one that I'm currently reading. And then also I'm going to talk about having more short form content like this specific to the different books that I'm reading. So it'll be more of an in-depth look at that. Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk. So to start this off, I want to talk about Vivo Barefoot. And many of you know that I've been a fan of Vivo Barefoot for many years. I actually started doing work with Vivo Barefoot back in 2009. And up until that point, up until I guess a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I had mostly been a coach doing education for Vivo Barefoot on their behalf, but also being sort of the face of certain projects. Like if they had magazine articles or different commercial pieces, campaigns that they wanted to run, if it made sense for me to be a part of it, especially being here in the US, then that was something that I was doing. And it was kind of on like a retainer basis. Throughout the year, I'd be asked to do certain pieces of content or take a magazine editor through some workouts, some barefoot movement, and all of the things I love to do. But then when I started to actually work for the brand, so now I'm working internally for the brand on a part-time basis, and I've recently been promoted to a new role within the brand. And so now I am known as the US lead for education and coaching, which is pretty awesome. It's very similar to my good friend Ben Levacon's. His role is the global lead for coaching and education with Vivo Barefoot, and he and I have worked closely together since about 2009, 2010. So it's really cool to kind of be listed amongst the ranks of people like him. And hopefully you'll start seeing a little bit more of that throughout the year and the years to come. You'll start to see more workshops that I'll be hosting, and hopefully some retreats and opportunities in which, if you're curious about understanding and learning the things that we talk about at Vivo Barefoot, because it is a brand that is heavily focused and centered around community and education. And so being able to blend that in with everything that they do at the brand, I got an opportunity to see what it's really like behind the scenes. And so that leads me into this conversation around Bantham. So Bantham is this small sort of coastal town near Devon. So it's about 2.5 hours outside of London. And it's really, really awesome. I've heard about it for years, being that I've been a part of the brand for a while, but it was just not the ideal opportunity in the times before when I was invited to go. So this year I got a chance to go, and now I see what everyone's talking about. If you notice some of my content that I posted from Bantham, which was on my Instagram, I think I had some stories up, and I may have even created a reel for it. But it's really cool because it's like, it's camping and glamping, but it's not full on glamping. You know what I mean? Like, even though the tents look really nice and amazing, it was we were out there roughing it. It was hot. It was some of the most amazing weather I've ever experienced in the UK. And being there at Bantham, you've got this saltwater river that has a beach connected to it, and it's amazing. So, like, I spent the whole time I was there, I would say 90% of the time I was completely barefoot, getting in that grounding aspect. And that was really important for me because obviously this is a barefoot brand, right? It's a brand that is heavily focused on foot health and optimizing foot health. And so it made sense to me to be out in a field, out on the beach, completely barefoot. And it just felt so good to do that for several days. And it was also interesting because not only do we go through a bunch of education and we get an opportunity to see some of the, like, it's a bit of a sales conference as well as a community building event within the brand. And the sales conference part of it is really cool because I get a chance to see what the brand's mission statement is all about, making sure that they're building the community within the brand, but also building community outside of the brand, and having those two intersect is really awesome. Got a chance to meet some really cool ambassadors from the UK, because without going to an event like Bantham, I probably wouldn't have a chance to, like, actually connect and build a relationship with these awesome people if I hadn't gone to that. So I think that's really cool. And I know that it's a huge undertaking for the brand Vivo Barefoot to take on, but they're willing to do that each year. And they do it, like, at least two big ones each year. There's like I think it's the winter solstice and the summer equinox. And so the one we just did was the summer equinox. And then there's another one that I went to last year, which is the winter solstice. And that is in Barleywood, which is another really awesome area, right? It's like there's a regenerative farm connected to it. All the food is from the land. It's really cool to see what the brand is all about. So that's Bantham. One of the things that I do find interesting, which will lead me into the blood test results part of this conversation, is that while I was there, obviously, as I'm getting older, I noticed that my recovery from traveling is getting it's getting longer. It's much harder for me to recover the way I used to. Like, I used to pride myself in saying that I don't deal with jet lag, and I can kind of travel, I can sleep on the plane in any area of the plane, and I can land and go straight to work. Well, that's not quite the case these days. So I have to be a little bit more mindful of my recovery. And when I got to Bantham this year, because we didn't have fancy refrigerators and we didn't have all the things that I'm used to having, I kind of took it upon myself to just, I guess, subconsciously not take all of my supplements. And I just figured, okay, maybe this is a good break from the supplements. Do I really need them? Am I going to be fine? Well, we had a brutal what was it, a 5K run, trail run. Like I think it was the first morning that we woke up early, hit this run. It was everything I asked for. I can tell you that. I mean, there was a lot of hills, a lot of elevation, and it was cool to connect with a few of the people that I haven't had a chance to connect with, and to go out and sweat together and enjoy the time together. It was amazing. But I must say that I definitely felt it. And because I wasn't as hydrated as I normally am, and I didn't have access to my protein shakes and my bars and all that stuff that I would normally have access to, I was feeling it. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take it easy and do some of the other events and activations they had planned. So we'll go into those activations, and I started noticing that I'm cramping, like getting muscle cramps. And I thought to myself, this is strange because I haven't really been dealing with cramps in a while. And here I am, I'm cramping up. But I disregard. I try to rest as much as I can. I did some dynamic yoga, which was really cool. It was a different spin on traditional yoga. That was fun. It was under a tent. The heat was blazing. The sun was burning me up. But again, it was all great. It was good. I thought just being grounded would be enough to succumb or to ward off any issues like cramping and things like that. But then I think it was the last major event that was happening. Oh, I also did some sauna. So I did sauna, and was like throwing a Nerf football. Hadn't played with a Nerf football in a long time. It was one of those ones that had the whistle. It was like, you throw those, and it had like a tail on the end of it. Really cool. Anyway, as I'm going through all the activities, things were fine. I noticed myself cramping a little bit here and there, but I thought, okay, I definitely want to do the swim run. This is what everyone talks about, which is, they have several different courses. You can do like a short course, you can do a medium course, you can do the long course. It's segments of swimming and segments of running, and that's why it's called a swim run. And so I didn't want to have to put on the wetsuit, just because I thought it was a bit too cumbersome to put on, and I'm okay when it comes to cold exposure. So being in the water, I didn't feel like I needed the wetsuit to kind of keep me warm. But what I did miss out on is the fact that the wetsuit supposedly helps you to float a little bit. And so, yeah, I found myself having to really struggle against the current, even though the current was pulling me. I was going along the current. I wasn't like floating on top of the water like everyone else was, which, okay, whatever. But what really got me is I did the first part of the swim. I did the short course because they were saying that I won't be exposed to the water that long. So then I should be fine without a wetsuit. Okay. So get into the water, got my kit on, got my Hydra ESC shoes on, which is great for swim runs. I also had on my wool socks, which is great for not absorbing too much water, and they dry quick. And then did the first swim. That was fun, exhilarating, great. And then we go into the next portion, which is a walk/run. You could run it or you could walk it, short distance, but it is what it is. And as soon as I'm about to get back into the water, I noticed as I took my first few strokes, my calves started to cramp up because now I'm having to plantar flex my foot very extremely. I have the extra weight of the water in the shoes, also in my socks. And so I'm having to kick a little harder than I normally would. And that's when I'm out in the open water, right? That's when I started to feel the first full cramps come on with my calves. So then I'm like, all right, maybe I can just kind of move my legs up and down, but not flip my toes as much. And then my quads and hamstrings started to cramp. So now I'm literally just swimming with my legs kind of floating and only using my upper body. Then I started to feel some cramps in my obliques, and started to slowly feel cramps in my lats. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know I'm not going to drown because they had helpers along the route, which is really cool. They had people on surfboards, kind of holding themselves in the water and being available in case you need to raise your hand. If you're drowning or something wrong goes down, then they're there to help. And the ego within me was like, no, I am not going to have to call for them because it's embarrassing. Whatever. I knew that I was safe because I wasn't too far from the shore, so it was all good. So I'm finishing my swim. I'm able to get through it, and I finally get to the point where I can stand up in the water and kind of walk my way through. Well, that activated another set of muscles, which was my inner thighs. And my goodness, as I'm walking on the sand and on the beach, it's just like my whole body wanted to seize up. It felt like what I experienced during the New York City Marathon back in 2017 when I ran that. I got a full body cramp, and I had never experienced that for like 6 years, right? Like, or what year are we in? This is 2025. So 8 years I hadn't experienced like a full body cramp like that. And I even ran the Speed Project, which many of you know, which is we did a long run from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. We did it in a relay style, and I didn't cramp one time doing that. So I knew that my body had the capacity to go through all of that. But during the Speed Project, I had all of my supplements. I had the what is it called? The electrolytes. I had the ocean minerals. I had my protein. I had all the things that I needed. I was well prepared for that. But at Bantham, apparently I was not. And so I started to think back to like, okay, what was I taking that I stopped taking while I was at Bantham? And I'll list a few of those supplements, and then maybe on another podcast I'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But one of those supplements is it's an array of supplements from the STEMREGEN supplement suite. So STEMREGEN is basically stem cell supplements, and they have a number of I guess products that you can take to build out your entire kit. And so I'm on I guess it's called like the optimized kit, where you basically take the signal, I take the release sport, I take the what is the let's see. Yeah, I guess there's 3 within their thing that their product suite. I can't even speak right now. I should probably just look this up. So I'll go to STEMREGEN.com. This is a good plug for them. If you are interested, I do have a discount code for STEMREGEN if you're curious on what it is, but it's basically just STEMREGEN.com. And like I said, it's really good in helping to give the body the most amount of stem cells that you can get. And as we get older, we lose the amount of stem cells we have in our body. And I hope to post an interview I did with Christian Drapeau, who's the founder of STEMREGEN. And anyway, I have this pulled up. In fact, maybe I'll share the screen just so people can see this really quick. I know I'm running long in time, but I think this is important. So here we go. So at STEMREGEN.co, I'm in the products collection. And so this first one here is release. So they have release or release sport. There's just like one small difference between the two. The release sport is WADA approved. And so, it's NSF, which is basically says it's safe for testing, for blood testing and blood doping. And so this one doesn't have any of the IgG factors of the colostrum. I take colostrum a lot. And so this has pterostilbene in it instead of the colostrum. So the regular release has colostrum, whereas the release sport does not have the colostrum. It has pterostilbene instead. So I like to take the release sport because I'm already taking colostrum. So it's kind of like I get the best of both worlds by taking my colostrum, and then I take the release sport. The other one I take is the signal. So signal helps to reduce inflammation throughout the body so that the body knows where to kind of, or what to do with the stem cells that are coming in. So if you have too much inflammation throughout the body, it's hard to know like what to do with the stem cells that come in, right? Because it's just a systemic effect, which is great, right? But the stem cells that you put in may just work systemically instead of keying in on the painful knee or the painful back or whatever part of your body that you're experiencing pain in. So if you have pain, this is a really good protocol, and the procedure that I do is called the I guess it would be the accelerated repair protocol, and or I guess you could call it, yeah, it's the accelerated repair protocol or the daily maintenance protocol. And so I guess if you take a little bit more of the release and the release sport, then, or I guess any of the releases, if you take more of the release and more of the signal, then that would be the accelerated repair protocol. And that's what I've been doing recently. And then at some point, I'll go back down to the daily maintenance protocol. And so the one that I was forgetting to mention before I pulled this up is called Mobilize. And Mobilize is it's a powdered packet that helps to basically tell the stem cells exactly where to go. So it's a circulation product that helps with your overall circulation, which is important, as we know. And I like that it's called Mobilize because it helps to mobilize the stem cells and tell them where to go. So Signal helps to dull down this inflammation signal throughout the body. Release and Release Sport help to give the body more stem cells, and then Mobilize helps to place those stem cells exactly where they need to go. So that's kind of how I break that down. So I'll stop sharing this because now I'll talk about why it was important to bring that up. I basically was not taking those products. I was not taking my Fatty 15 product. I wasn't taking the there's a glycocalyx product that I take that also helps with circulation and things like that. I wasn't taking any of those because, like I said, I wanted to take maybe 3 or 4 days off, simply because I didn't have the capability of having it next to me because we were in these tents. And I think that's what led my body into this extreme cramp, because I didn't have all of the nutrients that I typically would have. And so when I got back into London and I was in an Airbnb with, proper housing and refrigerators and all that kind of stuff, it was much easier for me to get back onto the protocol, and I feel great. So what I also did is I got my results for my most recent blood test results. And I took that test right before I went to London. Therefore, getting the results while I was at Bantham and in London, it showed me that all of my results were green, which means they were in the optimized range, except one. And the one, I think the reference range or the optimized range was 32.0, and I was at 31.5 or 31.2 or something like that. So I was like less than 1 point away from the optimized range, which tells me that leading up to going to London, I was doing something right. And so that's why I've made sure to come back, stay on top of all of my supplementation. And it's just a reminder of, sometimes you may not realize if something is working for you until you stop taking it. And for me, the price I had to pay for that was extreme cramping. I also went to play basketball for the first time in London, which was great. I was outside. It was still hot, but I'm out there playing in my barefoot shoes, no shade, just sweating my balls off, and it was quite brutal. And so the recovery from that took a lot longer than it normally would. But then when I got back onto my supplements, all was good. So the next piece I wanted to talk about is I got a chance to go see my kids in Budapest. Some of you don't know this, some of you do, but I do have 2 small kids. My son, his name is Zane, and both of my kids live with their mother in Budapest. My son was actually born in Germany. My daughter was born in Budapest. They still live in Budapest. It's amazing. Their mother has them living in this unschooling community in the outskirts of Budapest. And it's really cool because it's one of those, like, it takes a village to raise our future generations, and they have a lot of that there, and I love it. So they're out in nature all day. They're not succumbing to being on phones and devices. Like, they're literally playing with other kids, riding their bikes, climbing the trees. And it was really cool to see the change in my kids from when they were in the city of Budapest and they had the screens and they were around all their friends who also were on screens. Their behavior was a lot different. They were rambunctious little kids, which, kids are kids, right? But when I got a chance to see them this trip, I noticed immediately it was like they were much calmer, less bickering amongst each other. And I was just really happy to see that. And so this is also a reminder for those of you that are parents, just to remember how much of an impact devices have on ourselves and our future generation. So I'll leave that there. That's that. Not much to say beyond that because I know everyone gets it, but it's just a reminder. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, again, I know this is going long, but I can chat. I just wanted to chat about a couple books that I've been reading. So I recently read this great book called Exercised, and I'll share this on the screen from Amazon because I think this is something that we should all maybe look into. So Dr. Daniel Lieberman is amazing. I've been following his work for a long time. He's based out of Harvard. He's an anthropologist and evolutionary biologist, I think is a good title. But here is sort of the subtitle for this book. So, if exercise is healthy, so good for you, why do many people dislike or avoid it? These engaging stories and explanations will revolutionize the way you think about exercising, not to mention sitting, sleeping, sprinting, weightlifting, playing, fighting, walking, jogging, and even dancing. And there's a quote by Bill Bryson here that says, "This strikes a perfect balance of scholarship, wit, and enthusiasm." So this is a really cool book. And I'm reading down here, as you can see, that Daniel Lieberman is a professor of human evolutionary biology at Harvard University and is a pioneering researcher on the evolution of human physical activity. Tells the story of how we never evolved to exercise, to do voluntary physical activity for the sake of health. Using his own research and experiences throughout the world, Lieberman recounts without jargon how and why humans evolved to walk, run, dig, and do other necessary and rewarding physical activities while avoiding needless exertion. So that's one. Another one is, let's go to this other tab. The Dark Horse is another book that I just recently read. So that's the book here, Achieving Success Through the Pursuit of Fulfillment. So this one was really cool because there's a lot of stories in which the author, and his name is Todd Rose, and Ogi Ogus, I'm sure I'm butchering that second title, the second name, but the authors, they talk a lot about what it means to be a dark horse and how the people who search for meaning throughout life and throughout their careers, amongst everything else, all the other noise of what we should do and what society thinks we should do and how we should live. I think this is a really cool insight into true pursuit of happiness or fulfillment. So this is a really, really good book. I definitely suggest this one. And then the next book that I'm reading right now, I'm currently reading this book. There's also another book, but I'll talk about that later. The next book that I'm currently reading is called Ballistic by Henry Abbott. And this one is really cool because it's the new science of injury-free athletic performance. And this is very timely. This is very timely for me because there are lots of injuries that have been happening in the NBA and in sports in general. And so I wanted to really understand from Henry's point of view and some of the people discussed in the book. For instance, Peak Performance Project, also known as P3, they have a lot of interesting information as to like why they think some of these things are happening and what can be done to prevent more injuries to our beloved professional athletes. So this is some good insight. I know a lot of you probably wonder, like, why is it and how is it? Do I even have time to read books with all the things that I have going on? But I think it's important to continue to improve upon my education and experiences. in the world of personal training and certifications, we call it continuing education. I think it's important, but I try to do it not in the traditional sense. I do it by being out in the field, actually working with people, but also listening to podcasts, reading books, and scouring the internet for as much information as I can find. So yeah, I know that was a mouthful. This is just before the 30-minute mark, so I did it. And if you find this interesting, you want to hear more about any of the things I just spoke about, please let me know. But yeah, I want to keep this short and sweet, and I want to hear your input. So let me know what you think, and talk to you soon. Peace.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger than two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Walk the talk.